Hi, Savannah.
Hi, Ryan.
What are we talking about today?
Today we were talking about Nickelodeon's Victorious.
As always, to start, we couldn't do this video without people watching it. I guess that's not true, but I wouldn't really be motivated if no one watched it. Or watched our videos, sponsored us, left comments, likes. We really appreciate it. I really like engaging and seeing what you guys think of our content. So please, please, please keep commenting and we will engage. And of course, thank you to our anonymous sponsor who lends us this space that we're in right now, and our patrons. We have a couple of new patrons, and thank you from the bottom of my heart.
I imagine your heart to be like the Grinch heart, Ryan, not gonna lie. But yes, thank you, patrons. We really do appreciate you. So today is a third iteration of Teenybopper Tuesday.
As if.
Yay. So we're super excited to be here with you for Teenybopper Tuesday.
Just a quick heads up before we continue on. Since we are talking about children and children in the industry of acting, trigger warning for child abuse and sexual assault. There'll be nothing too graphic here, but just a heads up.
So, as mentioned before, today we are discussing Victorious. So if you are unaware or undoctrinated into Nickelodeon life, Victorious was a teen sitcom on Nickelodeon. It aired from 2010 to 2013. It has technically 4 seasons. On Netflix, it's really listed as just 3 seasons, I think, because they just condensed the 4th season into the 3rd season. And it stars Victoria Justice as the main character, Tori, as well as Leon Thomas III, Matt Bennett, Elizabeth Giles, Ariana Grande, Avon Jogia, and then Daniello Monet. That's all the core cast of the show. And it's kind of your typical teen Nickelodeon style sitcom with some kind of like zany, wacky humor. It's set at a performing arts high school where each of the characters goes to school there and they sing, they act, they perform in plays and get into all other silly situations along the way. So I think before we really like dive into Victorious, I think we should pinpoint like what it is that we're comparing it to. Like in our mind's eye, what is like top tier Nickelodeon style entertainment. Mm-hmm. I don't think we necessarily need to decide the bottom, but like at least what is like the top that we are comparing this to.
As far as Nickelodeon goes,
yeah.
You know, I really can't think of many live action shows from Nickelodeon during this era that I dislike actually. So now that I'm really thinking about it, I mean, Victorious would honestly probably be in the lower tiers for me. Mm-hmm. But I mean, obviously, Drake and Josh, iCarly kind of below that. Mm-hmm. And what else was there? That's it, right? That's all?
I mean, it depends on how far back you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could go far back as The Amanda Show.
That's true.
Something like Ned's Declassified on Fabulous.
Oh, Zoe 101 as well. Yeah, Zoe 101, top tier.
I think, like, without a question, the top for me would just always be Drake and Josh. The second might be The Amanda Show, even though I watched that when I was like much, much younger, but I still really liked it. But yeah, same. It's kind of hard to think of one that I definitively like disliked.
Yeah. What's nice about a show like Ned's Declassified is that one did have an ending, which was nice and very cathartic. Like they graduated junior high. And what's nice about Drake and Josh is that it kind of had an ending as well, and then it had a movie to really kind of like seal it up. So our initial reactions to Victorious now and then. I can go first for back then.
Okay.
I was pretty intrigued back then. I thought Victoria Justice was a little too old back then. I was like, why are they casting such old people? But I realize now that she wasn't very old at all.
No.
She was pretty much the correct age. But I'd kind of seen her in Zoe 101 and I thought she like had aged out of Nickelodeon, and I was kind of weirded out to see her back. But I was very impressed watching the show and the pilot and the music back in the day.
Yeah, I remember liking it a lot, being impressed. I think too at that time it was kind of coming off the heels of like Glee was still really popular on TV. Like we had High School Musical by that point. So I was like pretty into anything with like singing, I feel like, in the show. So that immediately drew me in, and I've always kind of been a fan of like the performing arts high school as like a setting, I feel like, for a show. So that drew me in. Although I do remember, I think at that point I was starting to feel a little bit maybe old for Victorious. It did end the year that I graduated high school, so I think that probably makes sense. And I feel like it probably was like the last show like that I like really watched on Nickelodeon. I think I felt similarly about it, like being kind of confused about Victoria Justice, but she didn't look too old to me. But I did recall seeing her, as well as Daniello Monet, who was also on Zoe 101 prior to being in the show. And I believe Victoria Justice was in a couple episodes of iCarly before Victorious aired as well.
Yeah, I also remember feeling a little bit too old. And then I think maybe around senior year came around and I realized I wasn't too old for like Avatar and Hannah Montana and Victorious. So I kind of went back and I watched as it came out. It still was a little too late for me then to really hop on the bandwagon.
I think that like my feelings on Victorious have changed a lot since I watched it then.
So Savanah, a couple of weeks back, we were talking about what episodes we were going to do for Teenybopper Tuesday, and she said that she was thinking about Victorious because she had started to watch it. And I was like, why would you do that to us? And I was like, okay, well, what if we did something else like High School Musical 3? Comment if you want High School Musical 3. And Savannah was like, okay. And then about 2 days later, she texts me and she's like, I think we should still do Victorious. And I'm like, no, I thought we escaped.
I'm pretty sure it was the same day that I texted you. I don't even think it was 2 days
evening.
later.
Yeah.
I think already, because I had just been like thinking about it, and I don't even know why I started rewatching Victorious. It was purely, I think, just based from the Netflix algorithm, where it was just pushing it to me, and then it was like nighttime, wanting to watch something that I didn't care about before going to sleep. Victorious was there, and I was like, oh, like, I guess so. Because I had previously kind of done the same thing with Drake and Josh, so it, like, made sense to me, like, oh, like another Nickelodeon thing, whatever. So I started watching it, and I just started developing all these opinions about the characters and certain things that were happening in the show that I never even thought about when watching the show initially. And I was mostly like, I need people to know my thoughts and feelings on this, and I want to commiserate with other people.
Yeah, I only watched maybe about 8 episodes or so. I rewatched the pilot, and I watched like the bulk half of season 3 on Netflix. So I didn't watch too much for this podcast episode. I had like a fun time, but also not a fun time watching it again.
Yeah. I feel like for me, the charm wore off very quickly. Like in the beginning, I was like, oh yeah, this is like kind of fun. Especially the first and second season, which was like I watched all of the first and second season and selectively through the third season. And I feel like I had seen already most of the first and second season, so that made it like a little bit nostalgic, a little bit going back to like the particular brand of like comedy that I think is on like Nickelodeon, and being like, oh yeah, like there's some things that are kind of funny, and then I just started to get really irritated by many of the characters and just like the repeatedness of the plot points, as well as like just repeatedness of like story arcs, what was going on with characters, both within the show and just within like the larger Nickelodeon framework of just feeling like I've seen the same thing play out in like every show that they've made. Yeah, it's very irritating, and the episode is just not relaxing to watch. It kind of takes you from like one joke, and then there's like literal blankness, and then to the next joke. It's just very segmented. I'm not very cohesive. I think the pilot really shone. That moment where they do ABC improv, iconic moment between Jade and Tori. That is true. It is iconic. I think that though, now the biggest thing that really bugged me, like going back and watching, was that I just really realized that I hated Tori. Because in the beginning, when I first watched the show as a kid, I liked her. I think I thought that she was like pretty and like dressed cool and stuff. Like she would be the one that I probably wanted to be like in high school. But now I just truly cannot stand her. And a lot of that can be summed up, I think, in the first episode, where it really just bugs me how it's like Tori just walks on the scene like completely out of nowhere, and suddenly they're just like, can you perform in this show for us at the school that you don't even go to and you haven't even practiced for? Then she's like, sure I can. And then she just gets into the school without, like, auditioning or doing anything.
Well, she knew the routine like the back of her hand because she was helping her sister.
It just really bothers me when there's, like, people, or there's, like, several other episodes where this happens, where, like, Tori doesn't even do anything. Meanwhile, like, Jade or someone else has been, like, practicing their whole life or something, and then they don't even get to do it because Tori's just, like, somehow better than everyone, even though she has no experience.
I think the views that you're presenting are really not unique.
They're not. I know they're not.
A lot of people have already graduated past this.
Well, I just recently rewatched it, and this was what I latched on to.
But I feel like even as the show was wrapping up and Ariana Grande started to get her fame, everyone was talking about how Jade, who is Elizabeth Giles, so Elizabeth and Ariana, and how they were the real talented ones, and I don't know why Victoria Justice ended up getting the spotlight for this show when, I mean, it seems like she was cast at a pretty young age, and Dan Schneider probably liked her, so that's probably why.
Yeah, I also just really wish that it would have been more kind of like Glee or even like High School Musical, where just more individual characters got to have, like, their own songs. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know why Tori had to sing all the songs, especially because even, like, in the show sometimes she would duet with Andre or with Beck or somebody, but then on the studio albums they just have Tori singing. They don't have, like, the other people duetting with her.
That's weird.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
At least on iTunes. I can't speak to what it's like on other platforms.
Yeah, I think the main problem with Tori is that she's the fish out of water, just a normal girl, doesn't know what to do, doesn't know how beautiful, like, that is the main problem with Tori. And that's not Victoria's fault. She did the best that she could have with it, I think.
That's true. That's not her fault. I do think it's funny on the show, like, there's a joke that Jade makes about, like, how she always does her, like, southern accent impression of Tori, and she's always like, I'm Tori, and I don't even know what's going to happen, so I'm going to ask why we're doing this. And then she literally does that every single episode. And it just really made me laugh. So, like I mentioned earlier, I like the trope of, like, the performing arts high school, or at least having that be, like, a setting, like, especially, like, Step Up. I haven't seen Fame. I know that's, like, probably the original of that type of scenario. But I like the idea of, like, Step Up, or even something like Camp Rock, where technically it's a summer camp, but it's basically the same thing for, like, performing arts. And personally, I think I always had a dream of going to a performing arts high school as a child. So
that makes
I think,
sense for you,
yeah. So I think that's why I really liked it. What do you think about that setting, Ryan?
I don't know. I feel like I've never really thought about liking that setting, so I guess it's not something that I would think of. Like, if I were to write a book with all my favorite tropes, or think of something with all my favorite tropes, a performing arts high school or, like, school for the gifted would not be involved. Unless it's, like, super high school level, insert blank, and it's done very well, like Danganronpa. But other than that, no, it's not something that I think about. Oh, wait, hold on. Now I'm thinking about it, and maybe I would have a talented high school be of my favorite tropes.
Like, what would the talent be?
I don't know. Like, something, okay, well, like in Danganronpa, they have, like, super high school level detectives, or nurses, or chefs, you know. It's not just all about performing arts. So something a bit more diverse. But also I really like Food Wars, where they have the super talented high school for cooking. So maybe I do like it.
Or what about Sky High?
Or what about
the school for superheroes?
Yeah, so I guess I'm having a revelation that I guess I do like it.
Yeah. I mean, Hogwarts?
I don't think Hogwarts really counts. I mean, you go there if you have magic or not.
Wait, why would you go there if you don't have magic?
I mean, you go there if you have, like, magic. It doesn't matter if you're good at it. It doesn't matter if you're good.
I see.
I'm more taking this as, like, the high school for the super talented.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
So, I mean, it's a cast show, so I guess we have to talk about the characters. We've already kind of talked a lot about Tori Vega, so we probably should move on for her. No one likes her. Everyone hates all the songs she sings. Some of them are still kind of a bop, though. Some of them are unlistenable, but we can kind of move on and talk about Andre or Leon Thomas III.
I mean, I feel like Andre is, like, solid of a character and a person. He seems like the most stable out of anybody else. I feel like it's nice how he cares for his grandmother. And there's really, I feel like, nothing unlikable about Andre.
No, there's really not. I do feel like he is the token diversity character. I mean, I guess a lot of people are diverse, right? But he's kind of like the token black character where they do make him just like chill and listen to the music, calm, but also he's that crazy grandmother. Watch out for her.
Yeah, that is not the best. And I will note that I had a point brought up to me. I shout out to Janiac on YouTube. He has several analysis videos on Victorious that I watched, and he brought up a good point about how like there's that episode where Andre has the crush on Jade, and how I agree with him in that I feel like that would have been really interesting to like have that play out. Like if Andre ended up getting together with Jade, I feel like that could have been a really cool couple. And in this video, he argues that they probably didn't want to do that for fear of like being too controversial of having an interracial relationship on one of these shows, which is unfortunately maybe true, that's why they wouldn't want to pursue that, but I feel like that would have been cool.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
For sure. I feel like my opinions on Andre are pretty unchanged from now and then.
Yeah, I would agree.
And the next on the list is the most wild card, arguably. Robbie, and I guess we have to talk about Rex as well.
Yes, and we will just note Rex is not played by Matt Bennett, who plays Robbie. Rex is played by somebody else. Mm-hmm. So, where do we even begin?
You can start.
Okay. I would say, okay, generally I like Robbie. I feel like he was kind of like a fun character. I thought he was kind of funny sometimes. Sometimes he's a little too weird for my personal taste. I feel like as far as what I find to be funny versus like gross or something like that. Mm-hmm. But overall, I feel like his character is fine. Not a fan of Rex. Not a fan of that portion of the show.
Rex, if you're trying to remember who Rex is the puppet that Robbie doesn't use or uses to communicate. I don't know.
Which is like a whole interesting thing surrounding, I guess, like Robbie's mental health, I guess you could say, of like what it is for him to be communicating through this puppet. That they don't really ever explore on the show, except for, I believe, in one episode where, like, Rex almost dies or something, and they think it might be the end of Robbie communicating with Rex, and I think his friends, like, say that that'd be good for him or something, but then he ends up using Rex anyways or something.
So I don't know what possessed the writers to write in Rex to begin with. I think I can kind of maybe understand to be like, hee hee ha ha, someone who has to use puppets, and the puppet says the most real things, and it's funny because it's honest but true. I don't know. I guess I could see that somewhere in a writer's room, but I don't understand how these paid people thought that this would be acceptable, like how it made it that far.
Yeah, I don't know. I also will just say, of all the things to be a continuation with our podcast, puppets, like our last episode also had to do with puppets. I would not expect 2 episodes in a row to be discussing puppets. But yeah, I don't know. Especially like I feel like they were trying to do some type of like code switching in the voice with Rex, because Rex appears to be white, I guess. Mm-hmm. And they also make some weird jokes, like racially tinged jokes about like Robbie's hair being like really curly and like calling it like an afro, and then I feel like Rex makes like kind of weird jokes about like afros or like hair, which then is also weird considering like there is a black character on the show also. I don't know, it feels uncomfortable, I guess, for me to watch, at least in this modern day setting.
Now it does. Back then I don't think I was as bothered by it. I don't think that anyone in the cast was too weird for me, except for maybe one of them. I think he's just unacceptable now. Yeah. And I feel like Matt Bennett is pretty aware of that as well in interviews. He has stated that he's not a fan of Rex so much.
Yeah. So moving on now to Elizabeth Giles, who plays Jade. What were your initial thoughts of Jade, Ryan?
You know, it's very odd to me that I did like Tori so much. So I guess I didn't really care for Jade as much, or maybe I thought she was trying too hard. I also have this thing, and I speak this way, but I don't really like the way Jade speaks. It doesn't sound as articulate, I guess. I don't know how to put it. But it doesn't sound as articulate, like the way she forms her actual words. So it really bothered me, the way Jade was. Now, I, of course, think Jade is the best character.
Yeah, it kind of surprises me that I didn't love Jade from the get-go, just because she has like that like darker aesthetic. And I was kind of like coming out of the emo times when I was watching this, but I think I was trying to like forget about the emo times. So I didn't want to embrace the dark aesthetic in the beginning. But like I mentioned before, now I stan Jade over probably anyone else on the show. And again, in this Janiac video about Jade that I watched, it does discuss how she seemingly has maybe some interesting things like with her home life that don't get like super expanded upon in the show, such as like her parents being divorced. There is like the episode where her dad like is coming to the play and she's like really stressed out about like putting on a really good play for him to see because he doesn't approve of her like wanting to be in the performing arts. And she makes comments about like her parents fighting all the time and different things like that. I will also say, in rewatching it now, I feel like Jade had the unfortunate of the writers like writing more of the like sexual jokes.
Yeah, she definitely got a lot of the sexual jokes, I noticed upon that rewatch. At least like once or twice per episode. Yeah. And I mean, if I like from a lineup, right? Never mind. But, like, I guess she would be the one, right? Is I guess what I'm trying to say. It's unfortunate that it's her, and it's unfortunate that, like, she's slightly curvier than everyone else, and so she's just the go-to.
Yeah, and I guess maybe since she's, like, edgy, that they would be like, oh, it makes sense for her to say that. And I know that, like, all of the actors, at least by the third season, I'm pretty sure were all, like, in their 20s, so they weren't actually children, but they were portraying children. So it just felt weird, like, why would they be doing that? Is that for the older audience? Like, I wonder if they knew, like, people, like, maybe the audience was us, like, people who are going to be aging out of this type of entertainment. So they're like, let's sneak in some jokes that maybe they'll think are funny, but in retrospect are just creepy.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that there can't be, like, sexual jokes, like, in children's content, like, in teen content. But it definitely has to be done very carefully. And researched and probably written by the kids themselves.
Yeah. What really got me is like there's a joke that Jade makes where she's like, someone's like, how could you go from an A to a D? And then she's like, well, I did in junior high. And what is really weird about that moment is because normally when there's like a joke, it cuts to like a laugh track immediately. But instead it like pans over, I want to say to like Beck and maybe some of the other actors. And they're like actually laughing. Like it looks like they're like actually laughing, which makes me wonder like if that was maybe ad-libbed, like they didn't write that into the show.
I honestly was also very struck by that scene. Yeah. It did feel ad-libbed. Like that felt like genuine laughter that they were chuckling about. So maybe she did sneak that in.
Yeah. Which I guess if she actually was the one who stuck it in, then it's fine. But if the writers wrote that, I feel like that's creepy. But also something that children probably wouldn't understand. Yeah. I guess watching the show.
Probably not. I mean, that also happened to me in junior high, and I would be watching it in junior high, so...
Yeah. No, you would have been watching in high school.
Well, if I were an age appropriate...
I see. Yeah.
I would have been watching in junior high. Next on the docket is a person who unfortunately just faded into obscurity after they left Victorious, and that is going to be Kat Valentine, played by Ariana Grande. And I really hated her as a child. I'm gonna be frank. I really hated that like ditzy kind of character in most media. It was not attractive to me, and I was also like, I'm not that girl. I don't behave like that. That is so not cool. Why would people behave like that? Why would people think that's funny? Type of attitude towards Ariana Grande.
I will say, I think I did act like that, like in junior high, like briefly, because I feel like it did get me attention, and I saw that people did like it and think it was funny, and now I look back on that time and I'm like,
I need a concrete example.
I'm trying to think. I don't know. I feel like I would just say, like, I would pretend just like I didn't know things, I guess, all the time, like in 7th or 8th grade, and people would be like, oh, Savannah's so silly. She doesn't know things. I knew things. I was playing you all the whole time. I think I didn't really think very much about Kat.
Clearly she's a fan favorite because she did win a Nickelodeon Teen Choice Award for Best Supporting Actress.
Yes.
So,
I don't know.
I still don't really like her. I feel like I appreciate the kind of humor and jokes that they were writing a little bit more. And I kind of like Ariana Grande's performance, I think. I can't tell if I do. I'm honestly a very mixed bag. I cannot tell if Ariana Grande is a good actress or not.
I mean, I feel like she had us fooled, at least in the beginning, before we knew her as Ariana Grande.
I feel like I still don't know her, so whenever I see her in interviews or her talking, I'm just never fully convinced that that's the real her. Only through her music, Savanah.
I mean, I'm sure she has a persona, you know, that she is putting on in interviews and whatnot. I don't love, also with Kat, looking back on it now, like a lot of the jokes that they make specifically about like mental health things, or she makes all these like jokes about her brother either just doing inappropriate things.
Yeah, and there's this weird joke with her and playing pirates with Robbie.
Oh yeah.
And she like gets really tensed up whenever they talk about playing pirates with Robbie. I don't like it.
Yeah. They do make Robbie, like, really go after her.
Yeah, they're kind of the love interest.
Yeah.
And I didn't watch Sam and Cat, really, but I do know that Robbie returns in Sam and Cat, and Cat does call Robbie her boyfriend, kind of.
I have seen some things that was kind of alluding to maybe that they were also trying to, like, sex Cat up a little bit in this show, like, with what she was wearing, but I don't feel like it was anything, like, too over the top that she really wore on the show.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
They also, I mean, if you're talking about mental health and what people are vulnerable to, if they are not neurodivergent and really are in touch with like serotonin, narcotics are a thing that is common in addiction in the mental health realm, and they do make her addicted to Bibble.
They make her addicted to a lot of things.
Bibble and the shopping catalog.
Yeah, there was like the shopping catalog, there was like a coupon thing, Bibble, like it was a lot that she would, like there was another one too, another shopping one that she became addicted to. They also start like towards the end in the third season, there's like 2 moments for sure I know where they make jokes where she's like, yeah, like some girls just like don't understand things, and then everyone else is like, yeah, like some girls, like referring to Kat, which made me just kind of feel like, why are they mean friends? Why can't they be nice to Kat? All right, so next up on the list is Beck, played by Avin Jokia, and he plays like the cool guy, like the most like conventionally attractive one that like everybody is like really into. In the beginning, he's dating Jade. Beck is another one where I feel like I didn't really have like opinions on him other than like finding him attractive, like in the show, watching it as a teenager, and then also like I think I remember wanting him to like get with Tori eventually. Oh, I just completely forgot another reason why I don't like Tori that I have to state right now.
Okay.
In the first episode, how she just kisses him.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that was more I was actually talking to this because I watched the pilot with my boyfriend, and he had never seen an episode of Victorious before. And I stated, you know, back in the day, I would have thought that was like Tori, like that was like a win, you know, like woohoo, way go Tori, she's getting a kiss from that like hot boy, like. But that's totally Avin's fault. That's totally Beck's fault.
That is his fault too. They're both wrong. Yeah. In that situation. But Beck, not a lot of like solid opinions about him. I feel like I didn't really think about him. He's not really in the show that much. Actually, which made me kind of wonder. I don't know if he had like something else going on like at that time, like if he was shooting something else. But I feel like there's quite a few episodes that you can assume that they probably didn't film like all on the same day. Because I feel like there's like sometimes half an episode where he just isn't there. And they don't, like, say anything about it. He just isn't there.
Especially in the first season.
Yeah.
I feel like he's not as much. But I know that he was very popular. I can remember having conversations about Victorious with other people and bringing up Beck into the conversation. And just having him be, like, the go-to, most attractive person to talk about. Like, oh, it's not that great, but, you know, there's Beck in it, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like rewatching it now, he had a little bit too much of like cool guy vibes that I don't find attractive. Like he was like And I live in this Airstream in my parents' front yard because they say if I live under their roof, I follow their rules. So I have my own rules. Oh, wait, no. I have my own roof and follow my own rules. And I just don't find that to be cool.
No, it's not very cool. But I think I can understand people thinking it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, as a teenager, you would think that is cool. As an adult, I'm like, you're not as cool as you say you are, little 16-year-old. And then from there, we have Trina, aka Daniello Monet, who I think originally watching the show, like, I found her annoying, but you're supposed to find her annoying.
Yeah.
That's like what her character is. Rewatching it now, I think I felt more sympathy for her. Like, it made me feel kind of sad, like, for people to be mean to her or be unaccepting of her.
Mm-hmm. I can agree. I think I found her kind of like, why would they even have her here? She seems kind of like an unnecessary character. And I still think that might be a little bit true. Like, if you're going to remove someone... Actually, I take that back. You could remove anyone and it would be the same show. So never mind, cross that off. But yeah, I was never very impressed with Daniello Monet, and I feel like it's kind of tragic that her talents were never really showcased besides her acting, but she never really had a real moment, at least that I've seen, where she like actually sung or danced. And I know she's a dancer and singer by training.
Yeah, there was like one brief episode, I think the April Fool's Day episode, they show her singing, but I honestly wasn't sure if she was actually singing or not because you never really see her singing on the show, which also made me wonder like in how much of like the background vocals are like sung by the cast versus like other people, because maybe she is singing background vocals on some of those other songs and we have no idea because we don't see that on the show. I will also just say that I remember one time, I don't remember when, but Ryan told me that I would be the Trina and she would be Tori. But I kind of feel like now it'd be reversed. I feel like at one point in time, maybe, but now I feel like more like the sassiness that Trina has, I feel like Ryan has more of that than I do.
I don't know. I think Savannah's a lot more particular about her way of life.
This is true, but Trina likes to give backhanded compliments, which I feel like Ryan likes to do.
I do like to do that. That's true.
Yes.
I don't know. That might not be the best analog for our relationship.
I don't think so, but I did just feel attacked the one time Ryan said that to me, probably like 10 years ago.
I had a very main character complex, okay?
Yeah.
I do kind of do.
Also, I'd just like to kind of throw out here, since in our other Teenybopper Tuesdays, we have talked about the adults.
Oh, okay.
So what are your thoughts on the adults of Victorious, Ryan? Can you even think of any?
There's Psychowitz.
Yeah.
There's Andre's grandmother. There's the parents of Tori. That's all I can think of. And all of them seem like they could not be there. Except for maybe Psychowitz. Like, I think you need one kind of grounded, I'm doing air quotes, individual to kind of make some story points go forth, like as adults do. Like, adults present conflict and they have to overcome it. I do kind of like the way a lot of the executives are portrayed. I think it's very silly. It's with like a lot of reverence, and there's always like, they make a big deal about having executives pop up around their performing arts high school.
Yeah, Maxwell Sheffield from The Nanny makes an appearance, not as Maxwell Sheffield, but the actor as one of these executives. The other ones that I would think of are like their guidance counselor, who I can't remember what his name is on the show, who was just like the worst guidance counselor. Like, if I thought that, what was her name? Miss Sylvie was the name of the guidance counselor in Degrassi. She was a bad guidance counselor, but he took it to a whole new level in Victorious of like pinning the kids against each other occasionally and not providing any guidance. I also kept like comparing the parents on Victorious to the parents on Drake and Josh, because I feel like on Drake and Josh the parents are like actually characters. Like, they're pretty involved in a lot of the episodes and they're funny. Like, I feel like they have a lot of comedic lines, and those parents on Drake and Josh, I recall, I'm pretty sure at least the dad, maybe the mom too, were also on the Amanda show, so maybe they're more seasoned, whereas like I could maybe count on the times on one hand how many times you actually see the parents on Victorious. You hardly ever see them, and when you do, they like are avoiding their own children.
Yeah.
And Psychowitz, the thing that just really got me was just how like inappropriate of a relationship he seemed to have with his students. Like, why was he inviting them to his house? Why were they going out to sushi together? Like, what was that?
I don't know. They did a very good job of making it seem natural in the show.
They did. You would think nothing of it. Like, as a teenager, I guarantee you, I thought nothing of that. Like, yeah, they're friends with their teacher. They go to a performing arts high school. That's just what they do there.
That's what they do there.
No, it shouldn't be. It should not be what you do at any type of school.
Absolutely not. It's very uncomfortable. Back in the day, I was definitely able to suspend my disbelief of a lot of the behaviors and actions of any character on the show. Now watching it, shattered. Someone speaks, instantly. I'm like, what? Huh? Anytime anything happens, I question it immediately.
There was the other adult of Robbie's grandmother, who was also a cast member of The Nanny. I remember thinking it interesting that they had like 2 people from The Nanny on that show, because I think that was around the same time that they started showing The Nanny on Nickelodeon. Mm-hmm. So I kind of liked those cameo appearances. They also make several references in Victorious to other Nickelodeon shows, and I feel like it's pretty self-aware of the fact that it is a show, and they make sometimes kind of jokes about the writing being bad, which I wonder if the writers did on purpose to be like, so people can't get like mad at us later for how bad some of this writing is. At least we're aware of it.
And certainly, definitely, probably.
Yeah, and like in the April Fool's episode, referencing to other shows, like Drake Bell is in that episode, and Spencer from iCarly is in that episode, and they have dancing lobsters from the Amanda show.
And they made quite a few appearances in Drake and Josh as well.
Yeah. All of this kind of leads me, I guess, to like, what do we do when something maybe we enjoyed as children we now like don't like for whatever reason? Like, whether that be because it's like been seen as problematic, or we just realize it was maybe objectionably bad in some instances. Like, how do you deal with that, Ryan?
That's a really hard question that I've been grappling with for about 2 years now. I don't know what we do with those objects. I think that you can remember them fondly and still support people that are in the community and still like the thing that you like, and still probably like. And buy independently. With these people, it's very easy to follow their careers. All of them, I feel like, kind of took their own road with what they're doing. I mean, you can think of Ariana Grande as like an easy example. If you were a fan of her in the show, it's very easy to follow her now. Like with me and Harry Potter, I talk about that a couple of times. I really do like to follow Daniel Radcliffe and see where he's going. I like to keep an eye on J.K. Rowling and to see if she'll come around and donate $1 million to anything that's to Trans Foundation or something like that. I still have hope, and I definitely have hope for the fandom. I know that Avon Jogia has a pretty popular TikTok, so I hear. So I'm happy to kind of check in and peek on people and see them on NCIS someday.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. I have definitely like struggled with this in recent years, and I think I'm still figuring out, I guess, like what the threshold is. Like, how bad does something have to be to where I'm like, I can't associate myself with that thing anymore? And where is it like, okay, I can pick and choose? I don't feel like Victorious crossed any major threshold, although we will talk a little bit more about some things with the show. But I like how you kind of framed it, Ryan, of being able to like pick and choose other things. Like, for instance, like I really like the Smiths, like the band The Smiths, and I did like Morrissey until I found out how awful Morrissey is with like issues of like immigration and the alt-right and things like that. But so now I'm like, you know what, I can still like the Smiths and just not like Morrissey, because there's other people in that band too. Like, I don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater necessarily in some instances, unless like it was really bad and it was like tainted for me. Like an example of something that was tainted, I would say, was the show Freaks and Geeks. Like, I really liked that show, but I know in UC Phillips' book, she really talked about how like James Franco was just so horrible, like on the filming of that show, and like abusive and all those things. And I feel like I can't watch it anymore because I just like can't get that image out of my head pretty much. So that is something that has like crossed a threshold for me. Yeah,
definitely things have been tainted for me. Like, I really like Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog. But I just really think about how Joss Whedon's hand is just really in there. I still do listen to it around Halloween time, but it kind of makes me uncomfortable, and I don't know if I'll always be able to listen to Dr. Horrible sing-along blog. I think there might be a certain point where I might have to stop.
Yeah.
And that goes for any of Joss Whedon's content. I haven't really gone back and rewatched Firefly or felt the need to rewatch the first Avengers or anything like that. But if I do feel that need, I will have to think about it then.
On this note of cancel culture, I guess, if you want to call it, something unfortunate with Victorious is its connection to Dan Schneider. So I think all of the other Nickelodeon shows that we have referenced up to this point were also produced and co-written by Dan Schneider. So the list of his stuff is pretty extensive. Just think basically like any Nickelodeon show, as well as some movies like Big Fat Liar, like that type of content. Like he really had a hand, I think, in shaping the entertainment for kids like in our generation. Mm-hmm. He has no longer worked with Nickelodeon since 2018. It is not entirely clear why it was that Nickelodeon parted ways with Dan Schneider. I do not believe that they ever made an official statement as to why, but it has been reported by Deadline Hollywood that allegedly the reasons why they distanced themselves from him was because of his well-documented temper issues, as well as tweeting inappropriate pictures of actresses' feet as well, which leads into a whole host of conspiracy theories about Dan Schneider, which I don't think that we necessarily need to speak to at this time. Nobody, like, from any of the shows has come out and said, like, yes, something happened that made me uncomfortable. There have allegedly been anonymous people who've come forward who have done like auditions with him and were at different like acting camps that he was present at, who did say that they felt uncomfortable or made them like take off their shoes and do things with their feet. There's also conspiracies about how like all of the Nickelodeon shows have like feet jokes in them, and the actresses are made to like show their feet to the camera. I mean, these shows have, like, a strange sense of humor. Like, if you watch a Nickelodeon show, it's different than a Disney Channel show. Like, the sense of humor is much different, so.
It is random, and I would say that it does kind of fall in line. But then you do watch a lot of those YouTube videos that count all the instances with their feet jokes, and you're like, huh, those are a lot of feet jokes. You're right.
Yeah. Which, I mean, feet jokes are fine. Someone having a penchant for feet is also fine. It's when it's underage feet that there's a problem without consent. And we do want to acknowledge, like, while there are, like, I don't want to sound dismissive of people who have anonymously come forward and shared their stories. They just haven't been corroborated. But I do believe very much in believing people when they come forward and say things. So for all intents and purposes, I believe those people who have come forward. But also, it's been noted that while like these things were allegedly happening in the background, Dan Schneider's shows were also just kind of declining in views by this point in time. So perhaps that is also what led to his departure. Any thoughts on this, Ryan, I guess, and how this might relate to different instances? Like, I know for me, there's other shows and movies maybe that had Harvey Weinstein that was involved with them that did focus on like teens. Like, for instance, I love the Scream movies, and Harvey Weinstein was involved with those movies, and I have heard unfortunate things about the people who were in those movies who had to work with Harvey Weinstein. And in those cases, I feel somewhat tainted watching them. I'm unsure. Do you feel like this information, I guess, about Dan Schneider, does it like change your views in how you interact with Nickelodeon content?
I think it's a little far removed for me, especially because there's not really any kind of direct implications, or I guess there's direct implications, but not any direct allegations is what I'm trying to get at. Not that I say I don't believe anyone, but I think it's just too far removed for me. I feel like when I'm watching something as a child, I'm watching it because it's on Nickelodeon, of course. And I mean, some of the shows are genuinely enjoyable, of course. We've talked about Drake and Josh. We did enjoy Victorious. And I think that it's not really something that I really can think about. It's not something that I would ever make my children, like if I were to have children, I would not recommend Victorious. Like it's not something that I would put in front of them, I think, nowadays. But it's not something that I'm ever going to go back to. So it's not really a question that I care to answer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess like in relation to maybe something other than Victorious. Like maybe in relation to like Drake and Josh. Mm-hmm. Like do you think that any of this information like changes your views on something like that? Or
I think I'd be more perceptive and careful while watching it, but I would still watch it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I think just in general lately, when I am reflecting back on shows like this that I watched as a kid, or even shows today, I am just like much more aware about the kids, like seeing them as kids being on these shows. Even if they're young adults, like 18, 19, 20, I still am viewing them that way, and sometimes I have concern for them.
Yeah, me too.
I guess, just because it is like such an unregulated industry, and it is known that pedophilia is a problem, like, in that industry, unfortunately. Which leads me that I did just want to, like, bring up Allison Stoner, who was a child actress and dancer. She was in an episode of Drake and Josh, and she recently made a YouTube video that I found to be very powerful when she was talking about the toddler to train wreck industrial complex, as she calls it. Just kind of outlining, like, a whole host of issues within, like, child stars in that world in Hollywood. And one of the things that she particularly mentioned in it that I thought was really good was she is advocating for having, like, third-party mental health consultants or therapists, like, on sets, just to make sure that, like, everybody involved really is, like, doing what they need to be doing, that everybody is, like, in a safe environment, as well as advocating for, like, having that type of third-party person to be involved, like, in decision-making with producers and parents as well, just to make sure that nobody's being taken advantage of in these kinds of situations, and that the children are really being protected as best as they can be in these types of situations. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I highly recommend checking out her video, because she has a lot of really good information about that.
Good to know.
Yeah.
I know Allison Stoner from Camp Rock.
Yeah.
That's primarily where I know her.
Yeah, I think of her mostly from Step Up, but I believe she's also in the Missy Elliott music video. I think that might have been one of her first things. So we've already kind of mentioned, just as a wrap up really quick, of the cast and, like, where they are now. Some of the people that we haven't mentioned so far are Matt Bennett, who plays Robbie. He is on Twitch. He does streams reacting to Victorious, as well as playing Animal Crossing, I believe. I'm sure he does other things too. That's what I've seen him doing on Twitch. And Elizabeth Giles, she is starring on the show Dallas, as the remake of the old Dallas, I believe, which I wanted to see. I wanted to check her out on there.
Me too.
Yeah.
I know that Matt Bennett, just a rewind, he had, like, an album come out, which was a self-made singer-songwriter type of thing, but also spoken poetry about Robin Williams films.
Oh, interesting. Have to check that out.
I follow Ariana Grande. Like, she's, I love Ariana Grande. I'm actually not too big of a fan of Positions, but I know that Leon Thomas did produce 2 songs on Positions. So I know they're, like, staying in touch. He produced a couple of songs, like, throughout her albums and he has his own career as a singer himself.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I did not know that about Positions. I'm not, honestly, like, the biggest Ariana Grande fan. I feel like the occasional, like, hit, like, will really get me, but I'm not, like, in it. If you could say. I don't know what Victoria Justice is doing now, do you?
No. I just watched a video about Where Are They Now, too, and I could not tell you what Victoria... I think she's, like, on a show doing something.
Okay. And Daniello Monet is now, I believe, a vegan icon. She has a vegan subscription box that Ryan got me for my birthday.
Yeah, how was that?
It was nice. I liked it. I got some good stuff in there. And I believe she has a podcast as well about veganism.
But I guess that pretty much wraps us up here. I think the 8 episodes of Victorious that I watched will probably be the last 8 episodes of Victorious that I ever watch, unless it is possible I have had kids request to watch Victorious with the kids that I work with. So that has happened. Oh, we didn't even talk about this, that one episode where they go to a country and they have to sing to get out of prison.
We don't need to talk about that one.
We didn't even talk about that one. We could have made a whole episode about that series of episodes where they visit a nebulous Middle Eastern country. It's very offensive.
I don't really foresee myself watching any more Victorious after this. If anything, maybe I'd want to go back and watch a better show, Nickelodeon show. It kind of made me want to do that, but I definitely feel like I'm done. Although this whole experience has made me want to look more into everybody else's careers to see more what they're doing. Specifically Matt Bennett. I feel like I kind of did a deep dive on his social media and felt for the guy now.
I'm sure he's doing fine.
He just seems like he's trying to figure it out. If you're watching this, Matt Bennett, you could be a guest on Prickly Pear Primas anytime.
Anytime, literally. I think we're about done. I wanted to give a quick heads up that our next episode is not going to be kind of a normal episode. We're going to be doing some sharing about ourselves, so keep a lookout for that next week.
And thank you so much for hanging out with us. Give us a like here on YouTube if you have enjoyed this. If you haven't subscribed yet, you should definitely subscribe. If you're listening to us on traditional podcast platforms, you can always leave us a review or a rating. It really helps us out, and we can't wait to see you guys next week. Bye.